Hey guys! Tonight we begin a journey back to December 24th, 1914, to a night when the sound of Silent Night drifted across a battlefield where just hours before men had been trying to kill each other. Imagine this: hundreds of miles of frozen trenches, knee-deep in mud and misery, and then suddenly singing. Enemy soldiers separated by maybe 30 yards of barbed wire, and death joining their voices together in the cold Christmas air. What happened next would change some of these men forever. And the letters they wrote home, they're still making people cry more than a century later. Now, I know you might be settling in for the night, maybe feeling that gentle pull towards sleep. Perfect. Before we walk together into this story, would you do something for me? If you're already feeling drawn in, if you can picture that frozen battlefield in your mind, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. And when something in tonight's story touches you, really moves you, that's when you hit like. No pressure, just when it feels right. Oh, and I'm curious, where are you right now? Tucked in bed? On a late night drive? Wherever you are, drop a comment and let me know. Keep your lights low. Maybe let a fan hum softly in the background. We're about to step into a moment that feels almost like a dream. Let's begin. December 24th, 1914. Western Front somewhere in France. Let me paint you a picture of where we are. It's around 9 at night, maybe later. The temperature has dropped below freezing, and if you were standing there, which thank God you're not, you'd feel that particular kind of cold that goes straight through wool uniforms and into your bones. The kind of cold that makes your fingers ache when you try to write a letter home. Private J. Reading of the British Rifle Brigade is doing exactly that. Writing a letter. He's 24 years old, married, and he's supposed to be on watch in a ruined house near the front line until 6:30 tomorrow morning. Christmas morning. His wife is back in England, probably hanging stockings or preparing Christmas dinner, doing all those normal, beautiful peacetime things that feel like they're happening in another universe. Reading has a small candle. You're not supposed to show lights near the front, but it's Christmas Eve, and sometimes you bend the rules a little. The candlelight flickers on the paper as he writes, and every so often he pauses to blow on his hands, trying to keep them warm enough to hold the pen. Now, here's what you need to understand about these trenches. They're not just uncomfortable. They're essentially long graves that you're standing in while you're still alive. The British trenches face the German trenches across this space they call no man's land, a strip of churned-up earth, maybe 30 to 100 yards wide, depending on where you are. It's filled with shell holes, broken trees, unexploded bombs, and other things. Things we don't need to detail right now. Things these men try very hard not to think about. The trenches themselves are about 7 feet deep, reinforced with sandbags and wooden planks when they can get them. There are dugouts carved into the walls where men can rest. Though rest is a generous word for what happens there. It's more like anxious half-sleep, always listening for the whistle of incoming artillery. By December 1914, these men have been fighting for 5 months. 5 months since they left home thinking, everyone thinking that the war would be over by Christmas. Home before the leaves fall, they'd said back in August. Well, the leaves had fallen. Winter had arrived, and the war showed absolutely no sign of ending. In fact, it was getting worse. The British Expeditionary Force, the French armies, the Germans, everyone was stuck in this brutal stalemate. This line of trenches stretching hundreds of miles from the North Sea all the way to Switzerland. And the casualties, let's just say that by Christmas, these soldiers had already seen things that would haunt them forever. So Reading sits there in his ruined house, candlelight wavering, trying to find words to tell his wife about Christmas Eve in a war zone. What do you even say? And that's when he hears it. Singing. Not just any singing. It's coming from the German trenches, maybe 40 yards away across no man's land. At first, he thinks he's imagining it. Maybe the cold is getting to him. Maybe he's more exhausted than he realized. But no, there it is again. Voices rising in the darkness. German voices. They're singing Silent Night. Now, let me pause here because this exact moment, is where everything begins to change. These British soldiers have spent months being shot at by Germans. They've lost friends to German artillery, German snipers, German machine guns. The propaganda back home calls Germans Huns, barbarians, makes them out to be monsters. And here they are singing Silent Night in German. Yes, but it's the same song, the same melody that British soldiers know, that they grew up singing in church, that their mothers sang to them when they were children. Reading stops writing. He puts down his pen and moves to where he can see across toward the German lines. Other British soldiers are doing the same thing, emerging from dugouts, climbing up to peer over the parapets. And what they see is, well, it's magical, strange, impossible. The German trenches are lit up, not with artillery flashes or signal flares, with Christmas lights, little lanterns hanging on poles, small Christmas trees, actual fir trees set up along the parapet decorated with candles. Where did they get Christmas trees in the middle of a battlefield? It turns out the German army had shipped thousands of them to the front lines. Can you imagine that? In the middle of a war, someone in the German high command decided that morale required Christmas trees. So they packed them up and sent them to the trenches. And now these trees are glowing in the darkness, their little candles flickering like stars, while German soldiers sing Silent Night under a sky that hasn't been silent in months. Reading will later write to his wife. During the early part of the morning, the Germans started singing and shouting all in good English. Because here's another interesting thing. Many of these German soldiers had lived in England before the war. They'd worked in London, learned English, fell in love with football, made British friends, and now here they were on opposite sides of a war that neither side particularly wanted to be fighting. The singing continues. Silent Night gives way to other carols. The British soldiers start to recognize the melodies. And then, you can almost feel this happening, can't you? Someone on the British side starts singing along. Then another voice joins in. Then another. Two armies singing Christmas carols together across no man's land. Lieutenant Sir Edward Holse of the Scots Guards is there too, and he'll later describe this as beyond surreal. He's an officer, which means he's supposed to maintain discipline, keep his men ready for combat. But what's he supposed to do about singing? There's no protocol for this, no chapter in the military handbook that says what to do when the enemy serenades you with Christmas carols. So he does what seems natural in the moment. He orders his men to sing louder, stronger. If the Germans want a carol competition, well, the British can hold their own. And so it becomes this strange, beautiful battle of Christmas music. The Germans sing, O Tannenbaum, O Christmas Tree. The British respond with the first Noel. Back and forth it goes, each side trying to outsing the other. And gradually, the competitive edge softens into something else, something that sounds remarkably like joy. Major J.Q. Henriquez of the London Regiment writes in his diary, I think everyone felt very homesick on Christmas Eve. Thoughts of our families at home were uppermost in our minds. And that's it, isn't it? That's the core of what's happening here. These aren't monsters facing each other across the barbed wire. They're homesick boys and men who miss their families, who wish they were anywhere but here, who desperately want to believe that Christmas still means something even in the middle of hell. The singing goes on for hours. Sometimes both sides sing the same song together. Silent Night is universal enough that everyone knows it. Everyone can join in. Other times, one side listens while the other performs. It's like the weirdest, most emotionally charged concert you could possibly imagine. And then the singing turns into shouting. Not angry shouting, friendly shouting. Conversations across no man's land. Hey, Englishman, Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas to you too, Fritz! You have spare bottle? We come halfway. You come halfway. This last bit is real, by the way. That's what the Germans shouted over to Reading's unit. They were proposing a meeting in no man's land on Christmas Eve. Now you have to understand how insane this is. No man's land is called that for a reason. It's a death zone. During daylight, if you so much as show your helmet above the trench, there's a good chance a sniper will put a bullet through it. At night, it's slightly safer. But still, machine guns are always ready. Artillery could start up at any moment. Going out into no man's land isn't a casual stroll. It's basically suicidal. And yet, we come halfway, you come halfway. Reading and his fellow soldiers look at each other. Is this a trick? It could be a trick, right? A trap to lure them out into the open where they can be shot down. But the singing, the Christmas trees, the candles flickering in the darkness. Would you go to all that trouble just to set a trap? The British soldiers make a decision. They're not sure if it's a brave decision or a stupid one. Those two things often look identical in war, but they make it anyway. They're going to meet the Germans in no man's land. Not everyone, of course. A few brave souls, or maybe a few foolish souls. The line between bravery and foolishness gets pretty blurry around 2 in the morning on Christmas Eve in a frozen battlefield. These first few soldiers climb up out of their trenches. Their hearts are pounding. Every instinct is screaming at them that this is how you die. Exposed, vulnerable, silhouetted against what little light exists. They expect to hear the crack of rifles at any moment, to feel that final terrible impact, but it doesn't come. Instead, they see German soldiers climbing out of their trenches too, moving toward them through the darkness. And when they meet somewhere in the middle of all that death and destruction, they don't reach for weapons. They reach out to shake hands. Merry Christmas, Tommy. Frohe Weihnachten. Because yes, there are French sectors involved in this too, all up and down the Western Front in scattered locations, covering maybe 2 to 3 of the British-German line. This impossible thing is happening. Enemies are becoming, for one night, something almost like friends. They exchange small gifts, cigarettes for cigars, British rum for German schnapps. Someone produces chocolate, real chocolate, not the barely edible stuff that comes in military rations. Buttons are traded as souvenirs. One German soldier gives a British soldier a ribbon with the German imperial colors. The British soldier tears off one of his own brass buttons and hands it over in return. And then someone starts showing photographs, pictures of wives, girlfriends, sweethearts, fiancés, children. This is the moment that breaks something open, because you can train soldiers to think of the enemy as different, as other, as less than human. But when a German soldier pulls out a creased, dog-eared photograph of a young woman in a white dress smiling at the camera, when he says her name with such tenderness in his voice, when his face softens and for just a second he looks not like a soldier, but like a young man in love. Well, it's pretty hard to keep thinking of him as a monster. British soldiers pull out their own photographs. This is Mary, my wife. We got married last spring. This is Anne. We're engaged. The wedding's supposed to be next summer when I get home. The photographs get passed around. Men squint at them in the dim light. Someone's thought to bring a lantern from the German trenches, and they make the appropriate noises. She's beautiful. You're a lucky man. Look at that smile. It's so normal, so heartbreakingly, impossibly normal. Just young men showing each other pictures of the women they love. The way young men have done since photography was invented. The way they do at a pub back home, or at a workplace, or anywhere at all, except a battlefield. And the crazy thing is, the thing that would have seemed completely impossible just 12 hours earlier, they're doing it here in no man's land. British and German soldiers standing together, admiring each other's sweethearts. They were showing us photos of their wives and sweethearts. Private James Davy will write to his wife Christine a few days later, and telling us they were fed up with this war. Fed up with the war. Aren't they all? Every single one of them enlisted or was drafted to fight for king and country, for the fatherland, for honor and glory, and all those big abstract concepts that sound so grand in speeches. But when you're standing in frozen mud, looking at a photograph of someone's beloved, all those grand concepts feel very far away. What feels close? What feels real is the understanding that the man standing next to you, the man who's supposed to be your mortal enemy, misses his loved ones just as much as you miss yours, wants to go home just as desperately as you do. Dreams of a future where he can marry his sweetheart, settle down, maybe have kids, live a normal, peaceful life. The same dreams. The exact same dreams. Bruce Barron's father, a British machine gunner who will later become famous as a cartoonist, is out there in no man's land too. And he'll write in his memoirs, here they were, the actual practical soldiers of the German army. There was not an atom of hate on either side. Not an atom of hate on a battlefield on Christmas Eve between enemies. The night is still bitterly cold. That hasn't changed, but somehow it feels different now. Warmer, maybe, more human. The singing has mostly stopped, replaced by conversation, laughter, the low murmur of men talking to each other across language barriers, helped along by hand gestures, and the few German soldiers who speak good English. They talk about the war, about how long they think it'll last. The optimists say maybe 6 more months. The pessimists? Well, the pessimists are afraid to say what they really think. They talk about home, about what they did before the war. One German had been a waiter in London. He actually recognizes one of the British regiments because he had served some of them at a hotel restaurant. Can you imagine? I served you schnitzel 2 years ago, and now we're supposed to be trying to kill each other. They talk about football. This is huge because Germans loved football, loved following the English leagues. Some of them know the scores and the standings better than the British soldiers do. There's a spirited debate about which team is going to win the championship this year, a debate that momentarily forgets the small detail that the championship has been suspended because of the war. And they talk about families, about mothers and fathers, about siblings, about friends who've already been killed. A German lieutenant named Kurt Zamisch will later write, "Thus Christmas, the celebration of love, managed to bring mortal enemies together as friends for a time. Love, that's what this is about. Not romantic love, or not only romantic love, but the bigger, wider kind. The love of home, the love of peace, the love of life itself, and the desperate desire for this nightmare to end so they can all get back to the people and places they love. As the night deepens toward morning, the soldiers eventually retreat to their respective trenches. They have to. Officers are starting to get nervous about this whole situation, and besides, everyone's freezing despite the temporary warmth of human connection. But before they part, promises are made. No shooting tomorrow. Christmas Day. Agreed. Agreed. No shooting. Handshakes all around. Slaps on the back. A few soldiers exchange addresses. Real addresses. Look me up after the war. Come visit. I'll show you around London. Come to Munich. My family would love to meet you. As if they're just new friends who've met at a party rather than soldiers from opposing armies who might be ordered to kill each other next week. And then they're back in their trenches, and no man's land is empty again. And for a few moments, there's just the sound of the wind and the distant rumble of artillery from other sections of the front where the war hasn't paused, where men are still dying even as Christmas Eve turns into Christmas Day. Private Reading picks up his pen again, picks up the letter he'd been writing to his wife, and he tries to find words to describe what just happened. "You will scarcely believe it," he writes. And honestly, who would? Who could? If someone had told any of these men back in August, when they enlisted, that they'd spend Christmas Eve singing carols with German soldiers and showing each other photos of their loved ones, they would have thought that person was insane. And yet it happened. It really happened. All along the Western Front, in scattered pockets, in places where the soldiers were close enough to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices. This miracle unfolded. Historians estimate that maybe 100,000 soldiers participated in some form of the Christmas Truce. Not all at once, not in an organized way, but in small, spontaneous moments of humanity breaking through the machinery of war. 100,000 men who decided for a few hours that Christmas meant something more than the war. That being human meant something more than being enemies. And the thing is, the beautiful, terrible thing is that every single one of them knew it couldn't last. This wasn't going to end the war. Come tomorrow or the next day or next week, they'd be shooting at each other again. The generals wouldn't allow this kind of fraternization to continue. The war was too big, too entrenched, too far gone to be stopped by singing and photograph sharing in no man's land. But for tonight, for this one stolen moment on Christmas Eve 1914, love was winning. The letters these men wrote home in the days following Christmas are treasures now. Historical documents preserved in museums and archives. And when you read them, really read them, imagining the cold, muddy conditions in which they were written, picturing the faces of these young men bent over paper in candlelight, they'll break your heart because you know what happens next. You know that the war drags on for 4 more years. You know that many of the men who shook hands in no man's land on Christmas Eve won't survive to see 1916, much less the end of the war in 1918. But you also know something else. You know that for one night they were more than soldiers. They were men who loved and were loved, who missed home, who dreamed of peace, who recognized the same dreams in each other's eyes. And they wrote it all down in letters to wives, to mothers, to sweethearts, to friends, letters that said, essentially, "You won't believe this, but tonight I saw the enemy's humanity, and they saw mine." And for a moment, the war seemed like the insanity it truly is. And we were just people, just scared, cold, homesick people who wanted to celebrate Christmas. Those letters survived against all odds through mud and blood and fire and loss. Many of those letters made it home, made it to the people who needed to read them, who clutched them like lifelines, who read them over and over until the paper wore thin. And now, more than a century later, we're reading them too. We're hearing these voices across time. We're standing with them in imagination in that frozen no man's land, listening to Silent Night drift across a battlefield, watching enemies shake hands and become briefly, beautifully something like brothers. So, as you drift towards sleep tonight, hold that image in your mind. The Christmas lights in the trenches, the sound of singing in multiple languages, harmonizing imperfectly but sincerely, the photographs being passed from hand to hand, each one a small testament to love's persistence even in the darkest places. And know that we're just beginning this story, because what happened on Christmas Eve was only the opening act. Christmas Day itself, well, that's when things got really interesting. That's when the football came out, when the burials began, when more letters were written, more photographs exchanged, more promises made. That's when the Christmas Truce became not just a moment, but a movement, a rebellion of the heart against the machinery of war, a choice made by thousands of individual soldiers to be human first and enemies second. We'll walk through all of it together. Every remarkable, heartbreaking, inspiring moment. But for now, rest with this. On Christmas Eve 1914, love found a way. Even there, even then, and the letters these men wrote home proved it. Now, something surprising. Those letters weren't quick notes. They were lifelines bridging front to home, sustaining love across vast distances. The British Postal Service in World War I performed a daily miracle. Before August 1914, it was the world's largest employer, 250,000 staff handling 5.9 billion mail items yearly, by hand, no tech. War hit, and it adapted to connect millions of soldiers abroad. First issue, 28,000 postal workers enlisted by end 1914, rising to 75,000 by war's end, 30% of pre-war staff. Some formed the Post Office Rifles Battalion. Yet mail flowed because letters were vital. For soldiers, they proved home remembered them, loved them, linked them to life beyond horror. For families, they confirmed loved ones lived. No phones, no emails, just letters. A week without one was agony. May Rogers's story shows it. By October 1917, her husband had been overseas over 2 years. She writes, "If only I could see you, it'd change me. Loneliness eats my heart, and yours too, likely." Her only balm, letters arriving at her door. Back to Christmas, 1914. Thousands wrote of the extraordinary. Private James Davy, 2nd Battalion, Seaforth Highlanders, Scottish, enlisted 1910. Married Christine, cis in letters. By Christmas, he'd seen battles like Messines in October, lost friends. On December 28th, he writes, "My dearest sis, you'll scarcely believe it, but it's true. We had an extraordinary Christmas." He details singing, trees with candles, soldiers meeting in no man's land, exchanging greetings, drinks, showing photos, admitting war weariness. The photo detail repeats in many accounts. Seeing enemies' loved ones left a deep mark. Davy notes, "They wanted us to post letters, as they aren't allowed to write freely. German censorship was harsher, fearing defeatism. These Germans risked asking enemies to mail letters, home simple messages. 'I'm alive, love you.' British soldiers promised, and many followed through. sending via British mail to German homes. Trust profound. Another letter. Regimental Sergeant Major Arthur Harrington, London Rifle Brigade, writes his wife, September 22, 1914, pre-truce. My dearest girl, apologizing for delays, hinting at leave but cautioning hope. Heartbreaking. Harrington died April 28, 1915. Shell blast, Second Battle of Ypres. No home visit. His wife kept the letters, all she had of my dearest girl greetings. Edited tales sparing worry, unkept promises. Multiply by millions. The mechanics amaze. Daily 12.5 million letters, packages, moved between Britain and front. Army Postal Service set up offices near lines. Mail crossed channel by ship, train to depots, truck to front, hand to units, and reverse. Most arrived within days to front, week homeward. Essential for morale, regular mail-boosted fighters, family-supported war. Not perfect losses in war zone, but most succeeded. Letters censored for security, no locations, plans. Officers read them, so self-censorship too. No deepest fears or romance under scrutiny. Yet they wrote, weather, food, terrible, friends, jokes, hopes. When over, we'll seaside it, you and me, fish and chips, beach walks. Saving pay for our cottage with garden, plant roses. Kiss baby for daddy, tell her I love her, even if she won't remember me. Fathers to forgotten children devastating. Private William Martin, engaged to Emily Chiddicks, young 20s. Planning future. Letters full of endearments, plans. Emily writes, My dearest Will, not much news, but wonder how you're doing. Relieved for your letter. Can't help anxiety. She reassures understanding mail delays, hides panic. Dull and weary without news of you. If only war over, together again. Tragically, Emily wrote before learning William's death. Her love letter crossed the notification. Thousands such crossings. But back to 1914. Truce letters brim with wonder. You won't believe. Lieutenant Sir Edward Holse details singing, trees, meetings. Historic, he knew, documenting carefully. High command soon banned fraternization, disciplining offenders. But in late December, letters flowed, stories shared. Families passed them to neighbors. Newspapers published excerpts. By early January 1915, public read of truce over breakfast. Reactions mixed. Some saw beauty, humanity. Others, disturbance soldiers too friendly, might not fight. Government disliked it, wanting clear enemies. But stories escaped, too strong. Private Patrick Egan writes his mother, Out of action Christmas Eve for rest, after taking German trenches mid-November. Won't forget this Christmas Eve if spared. If spared echoes in letters, knowing any might be last. They poured love, hope, made them count. Letters precious, surviving odds, revolutionary. This war's senseless. Enemies like us love families, want home, madness. Didn't stop war, but kept love alive. Reminded fighters and families what mattered. People, not glory. Postal workers enabling this performed love. Two keeping families linked. Soldiers hopeful. A care network defying war. Next, we'll explore when soldiers didn't just swap letters, but met face to face in no man's land, shared photos, stories, saw enemies as men with sweethearts like theirs. That's when truce deepened, haunting and inspiring for lives ahead. There's something about facing someone up close that alters everything. Hating an idea or abstract enemy is easy, but seeing eyes, smiles, nervous shakes that cracks walls. No man's land, named to strip humanity, a void where life can't exist. By December 1914, its width varied, 200 yards some spots, hard to converse, 30, 40 yards others, hearing coughs, smelling smoke, recognizing voices. Proximity complicated hate. Sharing misery weather, food, exhaustion made monsters less monstrous. Christmas Day, 1914. Dawn cold and clear on Western Front. In most areas, war rages. Artillery, snipers, machine guns. Another survival day. But where Eve's singing and shouts occurred, it's different. An unofficial ceasefire holds, unspoken, no orders, but real. Men eat rations biscuits, tea if lucky, tinned meat. Foods nutritionally adequate, but emotionally devastating, as one put it. They whisper, wondering if truce endures, if shooting resumes, if one more kill-free day possible. Then, German movement. A figure climbs parapet, exposed death sentence normally, but no shots. He waves casually, like greeting a neighbor, walks into no man's land. Imagine, British soldier, fought Germans months, lost friends to them, trained to fear, hate. Now one approaches unarmed, strolling. What now? Private George Eade of the Rifles later says, "Thought trick at first, rifles up, but he was unarmed. Someone said, 'Can't shoot him now, can we?' Agreed. Vulnerability creates obligation. Trusting you not to kill demands reciprocity. Shooting would be murder, not war. No one fires. A British soldier climbs, walks. They meet, shake hands. Merry Christmas. Dam breaks. Hundreds climb, meet in no man's land. Captain Sir Edward Hulse. Hard to believe I walked out, shook hands with a German, talked nearly an hour. They cover weather, cold, food, bad, home, pre-war jobs. A German waiter at London's Ritz recognizes a regiment badge. Served you dinner 2 years ago, now killing each other. Bizarre. Football talk. Germans avid English League fans, debating despite suspension. War length. Optimists 6 months, pessimists silent, but photographs shatter barriers. Picture, amid craters, wire, frozen mud, a German pulls a worn photo. My wife, Anna. Passed around. Young woman in best dress, genuine smile. Beautiful. Lucky man. Married 2 years, want kids, but war. British share. My sweetheart, merry wedding next summer. My wife and baby girl born after I left, never met her. Father missing daughter hits hard. Photos circulate, realization. Same women, same love. Several letters mention a German lieutenant's fiancé photo in white dress. Gorgeous. Lucky. We marry when war ends. When, not if, must believe in end. Deeper. Reclaiming humanity. Months as cogs numbers, statistics. Showing loved ones' photos makes them people with dreams. Enemy becomes person, missing Anna or Greta, wanting home. Bruce Bairnsfather notes, no hate atom. Dangerous militarily, harder to kill humanized foes. Command forbids fraternization for that. But today, not thinking that. Sharing photos, discovering sameness. Exchanges personal, names, addresses. Visit Hamburg after war family welcomes. Come London, pint on me. Plans for post-war as tourists, not invaders. Optimistic, perhaps naive, but in no man's land with photos and shared chocolate, it feels real. Deeper, Humanizing enemy. Not Hun, but Han's missing family, sharing dreams. British corporal has Christmas postcard. Germans sign it. He mails home as war souvenir. Imagine wife's reaction postcard signed by enemies. Exchanges. Chocolate broken, shared. Schnapps passed, burns warming. Rum appears. Cigarettes traded. Cigars from gifts. Photos keep circulating. Wives, girlfriends, sisters, mothers, children. A German shows family portrait. Big family. Misses them visibly. British corporal shows sweetheart in nurse uniform. Works Manchester Hospital. Cares wounded, including German POWs. Silence. Woman healing both sides. Compassion without borders. German. Good woman. Lucky. Corporal. I know. Afternoon. Football. Someone produces muddy, deflated ball. Fancy a match? Mood lifts. Football universal, no language needed. These men adore it. Ernie Williams. Ball appeared. We marked pitch with caps. Coats for goals. Hazardous field. Craters, snow, wire. Boots clunky. Uniforms heavy. Condition poor from rations, trenches. Chaos. Slips. Stuck balls. Wild kicks. Germans skilled. Pre-war players. British enthusiastic. Some novices. Nobody minds. Falls. Both sides help up. Out of bounds. Good-natured debate. Laughter, shouts, joy. German older soldier with mustache, enthusiastic but unskilled. Wild shot nearly hits British head. Everyone laughs. British kicks back. Better luck, mate. Thumbs up. Shared humor. Best in bad situation. Game lasts 30 minutes. 2-hour estimates vary. Goals scored. Common score, Germans 3-2. British gracious. They were better. Fair play. Lieutenant Johannes Niemann watches, delighted. Photos taken despite rules. Iconic one. British, German, mixed tentative smiles. Arno Bohm, German, identified by family years later. Corporal scores good goal. Cheers. Even some Germans applaud. Fine play respected. Pauses. Ball stuck. Breath caught. Chats. German asks British about Arsenal disappointed league suspended. When war finished, play again. Yes. Camera appears. Group photo mixed. Arms around shoulders. Joke, laughter, snap. Moment captured. Game ends from exhaustion soldiers, not athletes. Collapse mixed. Share water, chocolate, schnapps. British youth next German same age. Language barrier, but share cigarette. Point chests. Exchange names. Shake hands, like party intro. Celebration of life, humanity, joy in darkness. Afternoon, reality creeps. Officers nervous. High command furious. Truce overextended. Orders resume hostilities. Soldiers head back, shake hands. Good game. See after war. Take care. Promises to write unlikely, but sincere. Hope meet in pub. Rematch on real pitch. Football fate unknown souvenir or lost in crater. As dispersing bittersweet nostalgia. Missing moment while in it. Knowing special, suspended. Will end. Back to killing men you played with. Question hangs. How reconcile chocolate one day, shooting next? No answer. Just goodbyes. Trudges to trenches. Memories of laughter, competition, joy. Ernie Williams later. Day I'll never forget. Enemies months, then hours, just men. Lads playing football. Essence. Underneath uniforms, young men loving football, missing families, wanting home. For hours they were that. but day not over. No man's land graveyard, two unretrieved bodies. With truce, chance for dignified burial, even enemies. Joy yields to solemn. Laughter fades, ball aside. Reality returns. No man's land holds dead, weeks, months unburied, too dangerous. Now, opportunity. Mood shifts sacred, not fun, heartbreaking, but needed. British point bodies. That's Williams, my unit, fell November 8th. That Cooper or Johnson hard, tell after time. Elements, decomposition remains, not bodies. Germans identify theirs. Remarkable, joint burials. Men died killing each other, now laid side by side with honors. Lance Sergeant William Yeiston, Seaforth Highlanders, in burial party. Find French body, pre-British sector. British Germans agree, deserves burial. Two Seaforth head, two Germans' feet, lower Frenchman. Dig together, frozen ground tough. Grave filled, candles lit atop with cap. German Red Crossman leads short service, both sides heads uncovered. Easton, scene I'll never forget. Repeats across sectors. Ceremonies simple or elaborate. Salutes, rifles. Shovels dig, bodies carried, lowered. Soil replaced. Crosses from sticks. Wood, shell metal. Names if known. Private John Smith, Royal Fusiliers, died November 1914. Or Gefreiter Hans Müller, 134th Saxon Infantry, December 1914. Sometimes unknown German soldier or British. Graves lost soon artillery churns, battles obliterate. But now, dead honored, deaths acknowledged. Matters to survivors, guilt eased. Symbolically, cooperation in death, shared humanity. Work exhausting, emotional. Breaks, tears. Comfort crosses sides. British breaks down. German sits beside, hand on shoulder. Reverse too. Silent solidarity grief universal. Story. British chaplain conducts services for British. Germans attend respectfully. German officer asks prayer for their dead. Chaplain agrees. British attend. Asserts higher power takes no sides. Death, soul universal. Whether exact, feels true. Compassion without borders. Afternoon, work wins, exhausted. Too many dead. Some bodies unmovable buried in place, marked, prayed over. Imagine carrying friend Thomas knew him from training, shared watches, talks of home. Died in no man's land, unreachable. Guilt ate you. Now carry with two British, two Germans. They treat respectfully. Lower, pray, share story. Thomas volunteered dangers, wrote sweetheart daily. Germans understand emotion. Cover, cross, salute, all do. Thomas rests. Not erase grief, but closes circle. Says his death mattered, even to enemies. Comfort. If I fall, maybe they bury me honorably. Sun sinks, winter short. Graves dot no man's land, testimony to enemies honoring fallen. Soldiers retreat, truce fragile. Officers insist end. Christmas night quiet, hold fire. But time left for grace. German letters to home, can't through censors. British agree mail some. Extraordinary trust. Letters to wives, mothers, sweethearts. Alive, love you. British could betray, but don't. Many keep promise, send via British mail to Germany. Darkness falls, soldiers to trenches. No man's land deadly again, but sacred where enemies became almost friends. Not fully cant in hours. But not enemies. Something indefinable, between war and peace, when death paused, humanity filled in. Settling in, writing diaries, or silent, they carry new letters, addresses, promises, photos, mental, enemy's wife smiling, father's voice cracking on daughter, handshake promising meat and peace, memories sustained through resumption, grinding years ahead, despair moments, remember, once different, once human together, if once, maybe again, not war, but after. That hope kept some going, made survival worthwhile. World after where addresses matter, promises fulfilled, enemies, friends in peace. Some experienced after, survived, lived long, told grandchildren Christmas 1914, saw wonder. Others died, pockets holding letters, addresses, unfulfilled promises. Still hoped after possible, even as war took all. But all knew, experienced extraordinary. Proof humanity stronger than hatred, at least briefly. Wrote in letters, stories, insistence, enemies human, deserving dignity even when ordered kill. Legacy rippled, shaped soldier thoughts on war, enemies, humanity. Survivors home, told stories, published letters, showed photos, recorded testimonies. World learned, remembered. Truce became symbol. Common humanity, proof Christmas meant more than war. Being human meant more than enemies. And now, as you settle, perhaps feeling that gentle pull to sleep, remember those hearts that survived the war. Those love letters that bridged impossible distances. Those soldiers who chose humanity in the face of hell. Their story is our story. Their choice is our choice. Their hope is our hope. Good night. Sleep with the knowledge that love found a way, even then. And it can again.